we never ever died. When I left my body, I was still me. As I started to leave my body, I felt like my awareness was traveling through a tunnel. And so as my awareness was moving forward, I also felt free. He was explaining to me that voice or that those thoughts, they're not ours. We don't have to be defined by them unless we allow ourselves to. So to let them go. I started to just get this word, like a telepathic thought transfer of just the Akashic records. And I didn't even really know what that was. The afterlife is real. I mean, I experienced it. Before the NDE, I was really struggling in my life. I had a lot of emotional turmoil. I guess you could call it like a dark night of the soul. It really seemed like everything was going wrong. So I had lost my job. My kids were struggling. I was in a very scary financial position, not really even knowing if I could stay in the house I was living, just not feeling like I could provide for my children, which was very disturbing and upsetting for me. There was a lot of things in my relationship and with my family too where I was struggling. And I kind of got into this within this emotional turmoil. Looking back now, I really felt trapped. I really felt like I was stuck in these things that were happening to me and kind of that feeling of like they're happening to me, not for me. Like I just felt like it was one thing after another. So, also around this time, I picked up some sort of virus that was it was really just the worst sicknesses I've ever had. It was some sort of, bronchial infection. And I'll kind of back up a little bit, even to the way beginning of my life, to explain that I have had asthma my whole life. And so, really, I had a near death experience when I was 8 weeks old. I almost died. My mom found me in my crib blue, and she had to rush me to the hospital. And she did not know that I had double pneumonia. And so, that really, I believe, could have been a near death experience because I do feel that every time as humans we cross over and either, meet God or touch heaven, that it does awaken this divine presence. Because ever since I was a little girl, I had a very strong connection with God, with angels, and I was receiving messages throughout my whole life. I had weak lungs, and so I would experience asthma worse if I had a cold. I was at home on the night of my near death experience, and I had my own breathing machine. So I would kind of just not sleep. I was just really struggling all the time to breathe. And so I was kind of in this half awake state of trying to sleep, but just not being able to because I felt like my chest was so constricted. Like it literally felt like an elephant was sitting on my chest, and every breath was a struggle. And so when I had this kind of attack where I was gasping for air, it was in the middle of the night and I was alone. And I just started to pray, like, but not just pray, but like pray like literally like I'm gonna die. I cannot breathe. And so I prayed to my grandmother who had already crossed over. And so she was, in spirit form at that time. And I just prayed for her for help, and literally before I knew it, she walked in spirit form in from my bedroom door, had this white silhouette, and came to me, to my body lying on the bed, and started to breathe into my chest. And I can't even explain how there was so many things I was feeling at the same time. It was a sense of relief as I started to feel like this energetic breath because, of course, she's energy, but her energy was going into my chest. And I started to move up and down off my bed, and I started to feel like my body was moving. And I felt like her presence was over my forehead, like over right here. And at the same time, I felt the presence of Mother Mary, really Mary. That's I knew it was Mary. I didn't call her Mother Mary, but I believed it was Mother Mary. She didn't say anything. She was just this strong presence right next to me, enveloping me in love. Really, I felt like they were calming me down because I was, you know, struggling to breathe, and I was so scared out of my mind. I was like, I'm freaking out basically because I knew I was dying and I couldn't. It's a different feeling when you're gasping for air. It's a horrible feeling. And so as they were kind of enveloping me and hovering me, and my grandmother was breathing into my chest, I started to feel my chest opening and opening and opening, and I started to calm down. And then I started to oh, so before I started to leave my body at the same time, and it's also hard to explain that I felt that time was slowing down and I was in this like weird like molasses, like time was moving really slow. And so at the same time, I was kind of like experiencing my grandmother and Mary, and feeling all these emotions of like relief and also shock and wonder and just everything at the same time. Standing at the foot of my bed was this enormous figure. And it wasn't like you and me. It was like a kind of like my grandmother was a white glowing silhouette figure, and this was Archangel Michael, and I knew it 1,000%. The way that I felt the presence of the beings that were there were real it was really interesting because as a human, we might meet someone and they would tell us our name, and then we would say, "Oh, okay, whatever, I'm meeting this person," but in this experience, their energy and their frequency, blended with mine, and I felt like their presence was taking up my whole entire body and awareness, and it was like they didn't have to say anything, just Archangel Michael being there, like, I knew that that was Archangel Michael, and also his energy, even though it felt like he was containing himself to even be in my room, he was so enormous, he took up the entire, length of my ceiling, which was 22 feet, and I felt like he was crouching himself down to be there, but I also felt the expansiveness of his energy, which was a very unique experience. And so you could just feel how powerful he was. And he definitely had colors of red and orange and yellow, and he had the silhouette of a form, but he didn't have like specific features. But you could tell he was in some sort of form, right, of a human. Um, and so he was kind of just in front of me, and I started to leave my body, and he felt like he was guiding me. And so as I started to leave my body, I felt like my awareness was traveling through a tunnel. And so I was leaving my body and yet moving forward. And so as my awareness was moving forward, I also felt free because I was completely out of my body. And you could feel the difference between feeling like it's a marked contrast when we're in our physical body now that I have like the awareness of experiencing both. It's a very um you feel light. You feel light as a feather. You're just pure energy or pure awareness. But yet, my awareness was traveling like down this tunnel. And so I said I still knew my grandmother was there, and I wasn't necessarily seeing them at this time. I was going through what felt like a little bit of darkness, but it didn't feel scary, but it was like kind of a dark feeling of going down this tunnel. And so I said to my grandmother, I thought you were saving me, and now I'm dying because I knew that I had left my body." And she said, "No, you're actually," I think it was Archangel Michael at this time, who said, "No, you're going to go back. We're going to share with you, these messages." Um, and he started to take me through showing me how I was feeling and what I was going through emotionally and my state of mind at that time and all these different um, circumstances that I was struggling with. He was like showing me them and telling me that I am not my mind. I'm not my body. I'm not my thoughts. I'm this omnipotent, omnipresent, um, conscious energy. I am consciousness itself. And I come from this one mind, one consciousness, and we all do. That we're a seed in the universe. and that we have this unlimited power and potential and possibilities at all times available to us. And so it was just this opening of a new way of seeing myself. And as he's telling me these feelings, what I have, I mean, these messages, what I came to know or kind of understand is that it was also a different way of being told information, like in the human form, where um maybe we're told something and we don't necessarily integrate it into our own truth. This was an energetic transmission within my consciousness that I immediately adopted as truth. And so the words he said were infused into me in this very embodied way. And I know that because after the NDE, it changed what I believed in and who I thought myself to be. So he started to tell me all these things about the nature of reality. And then I asked him some questions. I was asking him about just some people in my family that were struggling, and he said, that's going to work itself out. And he said, um, the certain people in my life that I was having conflict with, he said to release judgment and send them love, and basically there was this overall message of forgiveness, and also that in like our sovereignty, which is a word that now I understand, but it's the best way for me to describe this, is very much not to take on the suffering and not to take on how other people view us or what they say to us or what they do to us. And he even said, not to take on the projections of other people or even yourself. So the words and the judgments that we can say to ourselves, that negative self talk where we've all experienced, just maybe negative feelings or persecute feelings of judgment or whatever the ways that we can talk to ourselves. He was explaining to me that that voice or those thoughts, they're not ours. They don't have to, we don't have to be defined by them unless we allow ourselves to. So to let them go, to let them go. And he was explaining to me, and actually I felt like it was also my grandmother explaining to me that part of my asthma was a lot of judgment and grief, and they had told me that when they were clearing that out of my chest, that the light and the breath that they had breathed into me, that that was a divine intervention, and that they were healing me. They were giving me a miraculous healing so that I could understand the power that I have to heal and how I am not, you know, anything that has happened to me. I am not, again, not my thoughts, not my emotions. And I think I truly was living as if everything I thought was me. So I kept feeling trapped in a box, trapped in a box. Like these negative experiences I was having, I was stuck in them. And so this whole entire time they're telling me that they're giving me this miraculous healing. And then he went on to say, I again asked if was, so am I gonna go back? Or because I was still confused if I was dead or if I was going back. And he said, no. He said, you are a healer and you are to share this message with everyone about who they really are, their divine presence. And you're gonna go back to share this message, and you are going to write books, and that will come later. So that's part of the story. Um, and now we're going to take you to meet God so that you can truly understand this, everything that we're telling you, so that you can have this experience of truly understanding what it feels like to be the power of who you really are. So then at that time, I felt like the light around me was really bright, and I was kind of out of a tunnel, and I was like in this very expansive space, and it was just very, very bright and white. And then I started to move within my consciousness further again, like forward. I don't know how, like it was just weird to not have a body, but you're moving, right? So
Right.
it was like awareness, and I was still 100% my awareness. Like, I still had the questions, I still had the thoughts, I was still talking, but it was all telepathic thought transfer. It was just the easiest form of communication. It was just instant communication in that thought transfer way. So I started to move through this, like, more kind of forward momentum, like, into light, and then all of a sudden, my awareness merged with kind of almost like it felt like a portal or like a ball, and my awareness merged with this, energetic presence that was God, and God was consciousness itself. God was this universal one mind. It was just I realized that that was also who I was, but as I merged with the consciousness, I became that energy, that consciousness, and I got to experience this unlimited, expansive, free, eternal state, which is just a feeling. It's an emotion. Um, it's pure bliss. It's pure love. It's just everything that you can even ever imagine that, this euphoric feeling would feel like. And so I kind of I don't know how long I was there because it didn't feel like I was in time. That was another thing that I realized. I was not experiencing time like the way we are here, where you kind of feel like, I don't know, like a more linear, like even in the way you think, like, oh, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. It was like outside of time, I'm guessing. It was just everything felt very much happening all at the same time. So anyway, so I'm having this experience where I'm at one with source consciousness. And then I felt at some point like being pulled back, and always Archangel Michael was like the guide that was there. And I felt my grandmother, and I felt like so many beings, so many beings that I didn't know quite like who they were, and it didn't even matter. It was just like I felt this the presence of like legions and masses of souls and beings and angels, and just they just felt all around me. But then it was kind of just Archangel Michael and my grandmother were kind of the main ones there at that point. And I said to I they said, "Okay, we're going to be, taking you back now to your body, but this was, a divine intervention, and we're going to come to you for 2 more nights. This first night was a reckoning, and the second night is going to be an awakening, and the third night is going to be a rebirth." And I said to my grandmother, "How is this happening?" Like, it was because I still felt just like me, like, experiencing this mystical, profound experience, but I still almost felt like the human part of me was like, "How is this happening? Like, how is it happening?" And so my grandmother said, "Well, we are twin flames. We are twin souls. We are always connected." And so explained to me instantly, I knew what she meant. It meant that when I called her and I was in need, like, that's why she was able to come. And then also, it was they told me that I need to come back and spread this message, right? And it was this feeling of like I have a job to do. Like, yes, like it was like oh yeah, like maybe even like a part of my soul was like, oh yeah, like because I do feel like looking back big picture now at my life then and where I was going, that I was really off path. And that's why I believe it was this divine intervention that they were like, not only are we going to heal you, you're not going to die, you have a soul's mission, but that you need help to go down, the pathway that your soul has really chosen. So my grandmother, explained to me that we're twin souls. She's always with me. Um, and they said they're going to send me back to my body. And so then it felt my consciousness felt, I guess, from being in this very, very expansive, free state, it started to be pulled back. And I started to kind of travel back down that tunnel. And they said to me, we're going to like drop you into your chakra system one by one. And so if you can imagine if there's like, I don't know, like water, and then one drop is going into something, and then another drop is going into another kind of vortex, and then another vortex. So that's how it felt. So my awareness was reassimilated into my body through the top of my head, outside of my body, and I started to slowly make my way. My energetic presence and consciousness started to slowly like assimilate and integrate back into my body, and then I just felt like this almost like a drop, like a weight, and it was actually really emotional, and I was actually really sad and upset to leave my grandmother, to leave that loving feeling of God and the angels and that place. And so, they said, so I'm dropped into my body, and I'm kind of in the here and now. All of a sudden, I'm like in this physical room that I was in. And then they told me, meditate on the stillness of the sound. And that was, to be honest, that's a I've never really dissected that transmission of what they said, but that's what they told me. And so I felt a quiet that I can't even explain. It was like a void, and it was just like no sound, no sound. And then all of a sudden, a gentle swirl of wind on my left side on the floor. I could feel it like twirling around, and then I could feel them leave. So they left. And then I sat up in bed, and I started to hysterically cry because I was so sad to have my grandmother leave me. She was my best friend on physical earth, and now I could see exactly how we were twin flames, because we are so much alike. Um, but it was I cried and I cried and I cried, and then I guess I went to sleep, and I had that relief of feeling like I could breathe, so I went to sleep, and then I woke up in the morning in shock, just like, I can't believe what happened to me. I can't believe that this happened. They healed me. That, I felt like a new person. I had a new perspective on my life. And I did wonder, are they coming back? I mean, I was like, I can't believe this has happened. And if it didn't happen, I can understand how other people, even watching, you might be like, how can this happen? But it's such a gift that this happened. That I can 100% believe and know who God is, and that angels are real, and that are the people in heaven are watching us and listening to us, and they want to help us. Um, so the next night, I was woken up by the presence of the beings that came to me, and they I kind of laid their hands, or I felt this presence over my body, and they started to perform more healing on my body. And it was just the feeling of their presence over me, and this feeling of like they were putting their energy, or like I just don't know how else to explain it other than like their breath in me and moving through my lungs and through my body, and the frequency of them really, I think, solidifying my divine presence. And, the next night, again, I was like, "I wonder if they're gonna come." And that time was very different. So in the middle of the night, I was woken up by a voice outside of me, like not a telepathic message, but I was awoken to this like almost robotic sounding voice that said my name, Amber Baker, like that. And then a snap of their finger, like literal, like a snap feeling or sounding, I mean. And I was like, okay, that was my rebirth. That was how that came through. I knew that that was the third visit. So what I started to do after that was like, okay, I am a healer. I started to embrace, my sensitivities and all the ways that I had always communicated with angels and been able to communicate with spirit. And I said, okay, so if I'm a healer, what am I going to do? Well, I think I should do energy healing, because that's what I feel like kind of happened to me. So I started to study energy healing, and every time I was, working with people, I was studying, first I started with cranial sacral therapy, and then I did pranic energy healing. And you kind of use a crystal wand, and you're kind of working with people's energy fields. But I started to get a knowing of what they were experiencing in their bodies emotionally, and I would start to get communication with, um, kind of what has happened to them, what's going on, like messages from their loved ones. So I'm like, okay, there's more, but I just don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. And so, one night I was woken up viewing myself. So I kind of like, uh, I don't know if it's called astral traveling, but I basically woke up looking down at my body, and I saw in my room there was these three monks at the foot of my bed. Um, I I don't know if that's the right word. I think that's how it felt. They were monks. They had totally bald heads. They had orange cloaks, and they were standing there and they were inspecting my body, and they were talking amongst themselves, and I didn't know what they were saying. And I was actually kind of scared. I thought this is totally crazy. Like, 'cause I was like viewing it. And like not they were unsafe, but just wow, there's like literally there's people in my room in the middle of the night looking at me.
Yeah, you don't expect that.
No, no, and so I was like I was just watching, and so all of a sudden they came they said one thing they said, which is interesting, they said, "Oh, she's gonna have arthritis when she's older in her wrist." So, very interesting. They were just inspecting me, and then one of them came over to my ear, and he whispered in my ear, "Pour oil over your forehead in the morning. This is an initiation." And so fast forward to the morning, I was like, okay, what is happening? What is going on? What does that mean? I feel funny pouring oil over my forehead, but I'm going to. So I just took an essential oil and I kind of put it on my forehead. And I kept asking everybody, what do you think this means? And I told a couple people in the classes I was taking with energy healing, this happened to me. What do you think it means? And nobody really knew, and I was like, okay, I was feeling open. I was also feeling like at that time, I was just receiving so many messages all the time from these beings. I was constantly communicating with my guides. They were communicating with me. I was just, I would just be with someone and I would just know everything about what they were going through. It was like this like psychic transmission. I was just totally a walking channel. So I knew I was experiencing that, but I was really trying to find my path and like, who am I as a healer? And then I, had that message of this is an initiation. So I'm like, okay, okay. And then I started to just get this word, like a telepathic thought transfer of just the Akashic records. And I didn't even really know what that was. So I kind of looked it up and I'm like, oh, that sounds like really interesting. But I mean, looking back, I maybe should have dawned on me that that had part of to do with initiation, but it did not. And so I just kept feeling called. Well, they say you can open your Akashic records. Like, let me see what this is about. And I saw online that there was a prayer to open your records. So after I had heard that name over and over, like I did it the most just no, like I just thought, oh, whatever. I'm just gonna like open the records, not thinking anything. And I had the prayer on my phone, and I remember just, like, reading the prayer, and then all of a sudden, as I'm reading the prayer, a presence of somebody came into my body, and I knew it was a male presence, and he used my voice and started to speak his voice, and he had an Indian accent, and he took over my voice, and the words of the prayer were spoken through him. And so I just again felt like I was watching this happening and I almost had no control. And so he said to me, "We are a group of ascended masters from the Kabbalah, and we are going to channel to you the book of life. These are the secrets of the universe. Get 12 notebooks and share this with others." And so I started to write actually, at that time, I think that was that stopped. And then I said, "Okay, I'm gonna get 12 notebooks." Like, I just felt like there was someone just telling me what to do, and I was just listening to orders. So I ordered 12 notebooks from Amazon, and they came, and I said, "Okay, I'm gonna open the records again." Same thing happened. The voice came through me, the presence came into my body, and he started to channel the what he called the book of life, and I actually didn't know that the book of life was the Akashic records until later when I looked it up, and they said, "Oh yeah, that's another name for the Akashic records." So it all started to make sense. And I started to channel every night, every day. I would just open the records and I would just write down what they told me. And so this is the book that I'm writing right now. It's taken me a long time. And it's taken me a long time because after so many months of receiving this information, and I started to share it with friends and family, then they started to ask me to help them. So I would open the Akashic records, and I didn't even know what a reading was, but I basically started doing readings, just trying to help people in my life that I knew. And then that started to evolve into me doing Akashic record readings. And so I have been trying to really, publish this book and get it out there because the information is so profound. It is everything to help us evolve as humans. And it really is this book of life, which really is, as they say, the secrets of the universe, but it explains um so much. They go into all different topics about, and different beings come into me. I channel with Yeshua. I channeled with Siddhartha, with Mary Magdalene. I channel what the 12 light rays of source consciousness are. The Solomon and Abraham channeled all about the laws of the universe as far as manifestation. They go into the beginning of time and how it was created, so it's really has become like a very full spectrum of kind of just like what is the universe, and also a lot about who we are as souls, and who what our ego is, and what it really is to be a human. So I'm really looking forward to sharing information. But basically, what I have done is I have not just started to do, well, it's been now for what, 8 years, I've been doing Akashic record readings, but I'm also teaching other people how to access their own Akashic records and read it as a way of life, because that's what it has become for me, is a spiritual practice to open my records. What it does is it connects us with higher consciousness, and it connects us to our divine presence and who we are past the circumstances that we're experiencing. So it heals you and transcends that experience of struggle, or just, being in a lower state of consciousness, and it takes you through this pathway of seeing yourself and your life in that divine lens. So that's my mission. It took me some time to kind of get to the Akashic records. Um, but it's my near death experience. I love to share it because on its own, the message of "you are not defined" is key, because we have to know that we are not defined by our thoughts, our feelings, and our circumstances. They do shape us. So, but if we think we are them, then we're trapped in them. And then we block our own evolution, we block our ascension. But then the Akashic Records has given me the tools to expand my consciousness, which is a daily practice. Because this awakening that I received and the rebirth, I hope that my story is a testimony. And I'm not saying this from religious, terms, because I'm not a religious person. I'm a spiritual person, but I do believe there is no better word than testimony to describe it, because I can say it from my heart, and I don't push this on anyone, but Archangel Michael is real. Angels are real, God is real, the afterlife is real. I mean, I experienced it, and I think that, I hope it offers comfort to all of us, and also the understanding of who we really are. We're just experiencing a human life, but we are intelligent, conscious energy, and our true state, our divine presence, is this multifaceted, unlimited state of awareness. And we have to know that so that we can give ourselves permission to tap into that state of operation, that state of being, and really disattach from what we're thinking and feeling, and really just start to question it. Because when we kind of create that space and question it, and leave room for, well, who am I really? Or what, how else can I see who I am? Or how else can I see this experience or this circumstance? Then it gives you the access to starting to view your full capacity of like who I believe we really are again, which is divinity itself.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing your whole story and what an incredible and like heavy mission that you've been given. Does it feel like I don't know if you ever expected your life to go this way, but do you feel a huge responsibility now that you've been given this perspective from the Akashic records and this experience? Like, how have you dealt with this personally as a human?
Yeah. It is hard sometimes. I have to bring myself into alignment to not feel the pressure of it because I know that that was never meant to be that way. And it's the ego part or the human part, is very, it's easy for us to kind of project pressure or to project like, oh, I have to do this right and be successful. So there is a dance between how I experience a soul mission as a human, but I feel honored. I feel like I know my soul has chosen this. I know that they, had to remind me of this. I also know that when I was growing up, now I can see like why I was the way I was. Like, it was such a weird child. Like, no one else was speaking to spirits. No one else had angels visiting them. I I actually had lots of experiences where I just felt the presence of God, and I wasn't religious at all. So, felt like it was always there. And so I think that I was searching for like who I was and what I was meant to do. I really had that experience of searching. I think that in a way, I think we're all responsible for putting good out into the world and serving higher purpose. I don't know if all of our souls have chosen a mission, but this is a mission more than just a higher purpose. Um, and yes, honestly, sometimes I'm like, am I even doing enough? Am I doing enough? And I take it very seriously, but I also know I'm no more important than anyone else. It's just almost like being a voice for God, just to say, you are God. I am you, you are me. So it's nothing about a hierarchy. There's nothing about that. It's just to be chosen or to say yes to a mission. It is to really serve the collective. So yeah, it can feel daunting. It also feels like an honor. Um and I try my hardest, to share as much as I can through Instagram, through, a podcast that I have through different, outlets. Um, so I'm just in constant communication with the records and with the guides and and just asking them like, what do you want me to do? And and I take good care of myself too. I know that every time we serve and we give, we have to try to give from that full cup. So I do try to have a healthy relationship with it all.
Yeah. Well, I'm very grateful for you for everything that you have been doing and all the love and wisdom that you've shared. So, thank you. I have some questions about the Akashic records. You mentioned that during readings, you help people open, I believe you said their Akashic records. Do we all have a different book of life, different Akashic records?
Yes. So every living soul and creature has their own book of life, their own Akashic records. It's really your place within all that has ever existed, the recorded imprint of your thoughts, choices, and actions across all time and space. So it's what you have experienced, what has happened to you, and what is happening, because everything actually is happening at once. There is no such thing as time. I know that's hard, it's hard for me to understand that, but this is what they told me and I believe it. So, it's not just the recording of what has happened, it is who you are anchored in your divine potential and your divine light. So when you access your Akashic records, you're accessing information and you are faced with um, maybe how you're being now, but the purpose of accessing your records is to get to a level of awareness of how you're really thinking, like in your subconscious mind. Like, maybe you think, well, okay, I want these things in my life, or I really want a relationship, or I really want to manifest this, but it's not happening. Well, when you open your records, it explains to you why it's not happening because of how you're thinking and feeling. Maybe what are those blocks in your life that have caused you to not believe or to think you're less than. But then it is a pathway within consciousness. It's a healing modality because the guides, and it's governed by masters, teachers, guides, angels, by the divine realm itself and your own higher self, because we are also divine. So they share with you what's really happening and how to reach a state of consciousness to embody your divine light. So it's that healing modality where it heals any blocks or struggles or any insecurities or doubts that you're experiencing that are blocking you from living in alignment with your highest path and potential. So every time you open your records, you ask a question and you bring to them a struggle, and they share with you why you're struggling, what it's teaching you, how to see it in a new light, and how to see yourself in a new light and a divine light. And then when you adopt that new truth, you are ascending into this state of higher consciousness. And then what happens after that is you're able to really just live your highest path. So it's our perspective that co-creates our reality. It's not the circumstances, it's how we view them, right? So that's like the gift of reading your records. It's kind of like a manifestation tool, it's a healing tool, it's an everything tool. It heals you. It also, because it opens you up to who you are at a soul level, not just this human life, you're able to access past lives and who you are at that bigger picture lens to say, like, okay, well, I'm experiencing this human life, but maybe my soul has been experiencing a pattern of oppression in a lot of different lifetimes. So it's really it's the mecca. It's the mecca of all, I believe, spiritual tools. And what's also interesting about the records is it is the book of life of every living creature and soul, but because it is consciousness itself, you can access ascended masters, you can access the consciousness of locations, you can access the spiritual principles. You can open the records and say, okay, I want to learn about manifestation, or I want to learn about forgiveness. I want to learn about what it means so you can get information or you can achieve healing. And you can do this practice with yourself, which is what I really love to teach people, because a lot of people come to me for a reading and the readings are amazing. I'm so honored to do the work that I do. But then it's like, well, I want you to have that experience anytime you need to, not just one time or two times or three times. You can do this for yourself. And that's really learning how to be your own divine channel. And that's like a whole other teaching, experience that I give people, where I teach them how to read the Akashic records.
That's so interesting.
This is what the guides have said to me, is that the Akashic records is also a transfer of light and thought. So when you're in this realm, you the reason why it feels like that energetic transmission in frequency is because that's light, right? Frequency is light. And so when you are in your records, whether it's through me or you're in your own Akashic records, and they're sharing with you information, they're not just telling you. And of course, in real life, that's the same way, because words are just energy. But they're truly infusing the light and the frequency of the words that they share with you. So the more you can be open, the more your energy can be open to feeling the frequency of what they're sharing with you, the more shift that you can align to, right?
Mhm.
So it is I hope that kind of explains it more.
It does. It does. Thank you. I'd love to ask you some questions about your near death experience. And one of them is something that I've just personally been thinking about. I've seen Mother Mary depicted often as sometimes an older, wiser figure, but then often in art too, as very young and youthful, like when she would have been when she had Jesus. I'm wondering what did her energy feel like?
So she did not have an image that I saw of her, so I can't speak to that. She Okay, so I guess I could say that she felt like love itself, like almost like the nucleus of an expression contained in a presence, in a figure. You could think of it like an archetype. She didn't seem just like, "Oh, this is a person. This was my grandmother that died." She was a presence that was stronger than maybe how we experience our human self, and so she was just love. Her presence was an anchor of love, and that's how I experienced her, and she didn't, say anything physically to me like Archangel Michael. Um, Now in the book, I do channel with Mary Magdalene, and she explains how she is a counterpart of Yeshua, of Jesus. So she is we know in duality that we have the feminine and masculine energies, and so she is actually, um, the counterpart of Yeshua. And so I think that it seems to me, at least, that in the religion in that context of maybe what would be Christianity, that these figures, these presences, they almost, feel like they are like living archetypes or embodiments of, energies of God, and they represent something. So Mother Mary, it's not that I don't believe that she was a real figure. I believe that ascended masters walk this earth, and that, we because we're all part of divinity, that sometimes we take on the expression of a facet of divinity, and I think that's who she is. She still continues to be. She is unconditional love. And so if you feel like you need that in your life, and you feel like you either need to, practice more self-love or love towards humanity or forgiveness, you can call in Yeshua, or you can call in Mother Mary as this energetic frequency, right? Because they represent that. So for me, she feels less like someone that walked this earth as the mother of Jesus, and more just like the expression of unconditional love. And I felt, um, that that's what her presence infused into me.
I appreciate you saying that, and that's as someone who grew up, um, Catholic and now is kind of expanding how I look at the world and spirituality, that's kind of how I've reconciled a lot of these because I do believe in Jesus, I do believe in Mother Mary, but, um, I do also believe that Jesus was a frequency, exactly like you're saying, and that these figures can appear for certain people or come in forms that maybe other religions might resonate with more. It's been a journey for me to try and make sense of that, and I think I'm still working on it, which is why I appreciate you talking about this. Did you, before your near-death experience, know about like Archangel Michael or all these figures, or did you start researching into them after?
So, well, of course, I heard of Archangel Michael, and I was always a spiritual person, but I wasn't a religious person. I didn't have any direct relationship with Jesus at all, or Mother Mary, or Archangel Michael. I guess I felt like, I read things about him, I heard things about him, but I didn't have like a close feeling about him. I didn't feel his presence in a way that really affected me in this profound way before. Um, so now it's almost like, you know, meeting it wasn't just meeting him, it was, I mean, he was a huge part of my journey. He was really the one that, like, guided me, and his message is not just for me. I mean, this is for me to share with all of you, right? So this is who I think he represents. How can we put what his messages were in a box with what he represents? Um, I think is hard to even put in words, but he seems to be like a warrior spirit of personal transcendence and almost like the power, like a figure, a presence to really empower humanity. I believe, and what I've been told is that angels are beings to help humanity. So we can always turn to the angelic kingdom, the legions of light to help us. And different angels represent different states of being or different experiences of transcendence that we can invite into us. Whereas maybe Raphael is more about healing, Archangel Michael is about transcendence, right? He's about you are never fixed into one state of being. You are this omnipotent presence and power at all times. And so his message is really one of ascension. And so it for me, it's more about still this having this personal relationship with what he represents. Like he's someone that I feel like I know, and he's someone that I feel for everyone, it's more just allowing yourself to have a relationship with the energy of these angels, and what that means to you will help you in different ways in different times of your life. And they're very real. They're 100% real, and we can all call onto them. Um, I and I know this is a little bit off topic, but I just want to say sometimes I think it's important that we ask for help from the divine realm, and that, we almost create our own mystical experiences. Ask for what you want, ask to communicate with them. And it's okay to not fully know what that looks like or if you truly believe it, but you have to give yourself a chance to just trust and to build your own relationship with the divine realm.
That's great advice. It is, and I hope the people who are watching and that need to hear that and are craving that relationship take that to heart. One thing that I'm curious about is chakras, and you learned about them and you saw yourself, you came back through them. I don't know a lot about chakras. Can you tell me, for me and those who don't know a lot about them, what are they and how do we use them?
So this is all from my experience with
Yes.
my NDE. Of course, I've like read a little bit about them, but I really try to go straight now to consciousness itself and source to ask for information and to understand it. And well, I was literally told in the NDE that our chakras are where our energy centers where we store consciousness. And they represent different states of consciousness and they govern different areas of our body. So they're like concentrated energies that hold consciousness. And so basically, without it's kind of how the light of who we are, how our consciousness is kind of housed, right, in this physical body. Um, and so it makes sense to me how, because that's who we are, is consciousness. That's how I came back into my body, was through the energy centers. So we have 7 chakras in our physical body, but what was shown to me was that we have chakras outside of our body as well. We have chakras below our feet, we have chakras above our head. And so my consciousness was dropped in above my head. So some people kind of widely understand, like, okay, this is our crown chakra. But after that experience, I did start to, I actually got in one time when I was in the shower, a whole entire transmission of how to work with my chakras. Um, and that has been something that I do every time I open the Akashic records is I open and activate my chakras in my body and the ones above my head and below my feet, because I know that they are what connect me to the divine realm. And because they are my consciousness, I have a practice that the guides have helped me develop where I just go one by one within my awareness, where I locate where that chakra is. And I just simply say that chakra, like for instance, we have a soul star chakra that's like 6 to 12 inches above our head. And sometimes when we can open and activate that chakra, that can be what really opens us to channeling, to our soul, to, the divine realm. And so, like I said, I've developed this little practice where I kind of go into my awareness and I say that chakra is open and activated. And I really allow my energy to feel the energy where that chakra is placed in my auric field. And I imagine it opening and activating. And so I will say working with your chakras, um, it is what allows you to more easily connect to your Akashic records, to connect to the divine realm, and also to expand your consciousness. Because we as humans, if we have a narrow level of awareness, our chakras are also not very healthy. They're not functioning in that expanded state. Our energy bodies are not functioning in that expanded state, and our chakras are actually connected to our energy bodies, which is sorry, I'm probably explaining too
No,
much.
please, I'm
I-
loving it.
It's all connected. And so this is something, like I said, I do. I open and activate all my chakras, and I teach other people how to do it in my classes. And a lot of times, people who they're like, I can't seem to communicate with my records. It is opening and activating your chakras that really helps you start to be the divine channel that I know we all are. So it is an important gift that they gave me when they kind of dropped me into my consciousness, because it helped me understand like the mechanics of what the human body really is, right? We're not this physical, we're energy. And okay, so how is our energy in our physical body expressed? It's through the chakras, and it's through the layers of energy around us. And ultimately, when we can allow more light and love into our bodies, or into our minds, our frequency is expanded, it's raised, right? And that light is what allows us to communicate with divinity, because that's what's called a light body. So our light body, and this is what has been taught to me in my book that I channeled. Our light body is the vehicle to divine communication.
Okay.
So it all starts with your energy, and how you are operating past just that understanding of you as a human body. It starts with your aura and your chakras and your energy. So when you start to work there, you start to allow yourself to truly, like I said, communicate with the divine realm, communicate with your own higher self. So it is important.
Mhm. Oh, that's so interesting. I'm going to have to do more research on them now. One question that I had about your near death experience, something that made me personally really interested to talk to you is I know you had asthma, and something that I struggle with is breathing, I guess you would say. I don't know. I've always had a hard time breathing. I've been to the hospitals about it. They say it's anxiety, and probably is. But it makes it so hard, I find, to ground myself in breath work, in meditation. I'm wondering, because you've obviously struggled with it too, maybe in a different way, but how did improving your breath work help with your connection to spirit? Do you have any advice for me?
I would say just one thing for you would be to look into your past lives to see if you have any trauma around anything that has happened to you traumatic, in traumatic passings in your past lives, whether it's, I don't want to trigger anybody, but imagine um sometimes we can carry fear in our lifetimes and not really know where it comes from. So I really would say that would be worth looking into. And I would say that I call it the breath of life because the breath, it's like when I was not able to breathe, it's an experience of you're gonna die, right? And so the breath of life on one level of understanding, breathing is life and not breathing is death. But then the breath of life is another level of understanding. And the breath of life is our eternal presence, right? It's who we are as these conscious beings that have us that we're a soul, we're divine sparks that never die. And so if you're experiencing anxiety and had this experience of not feeling like you could breathe, I would also say to really look into your relationship with life and death and your fear around that, and maybe allow yourself the journey to start to open up to what do you feel about who you are as an eternal being? Because healing, um, your relationship with who you are past this one life and past maybe thinking of the feeling of, well, I'm just this human and I have this one life, and starting to develop your relationship with your soul and your divine presence, your eternal self, I think is a direct symbol of your relationship with breathing.
Mhm.
If that makes sense at all or
It
helps you in
does.
any way, I hope it does. Um, but um, because anxiety, if you break it down, is fear, and the only, one of the biggest fears in all of our lives is death. But when we can face death and understand that we never die, we never ever die. Like and I'm telling you, my consciousness when I left my body, I was still me. And so it's probably an opportunity for you to have a spiritual journey around life and death.
I've definitely been on that journey as I've been doing this channel, but I think it's still so much to unlearn, and learn new things too. I think it's a lot of intentional work learning, and it's a longer journey than maybe I'd anticipated, but happy to be on it. And I will look into my past lives. Thank you. Has your asthma gotten better since this experience?
Yes, it has. I mean, I don't remember the last time I've been to the hospital. I can't say I never experienced any of it, but it's definitely a healing where it has never gone back to that level. I think that my body has changed, my energy body, I mean. I think that the healing of being in my divine presence has changed my not just my asthma, but like everything about how I experience life. So yeah, they really, healed me like in all areas of my life. I mean, I really truly I say I feel like a different person, but it's more me than I ever was, right? Because that's our true presence. Um, and yeah, it's I'm also I do relate to the feeling of not being able to breathe. Um, I have to one of the gifts that they gave me was like the fear that I could get into if I even just experienced a little bit of that. And so I have a new relationship with who I am in any struggle that I go through, where I can relax more into another state of being so that I don't kind of get too wrapped up in the fear of maybe just one experience of, oh, I can't breathe. It's like this is the self-healing component that we all have to our life. That's more than just me with my asthma. It's anything that you're experiencing in your life, any label. I also healed myself from an autoimmune thing called POTS syndrome. And it was like I had this visceral experience of like, okay, fainting all the time. I know the label is pot syndrome, but I also know that I am an energetic presence with unlimited power and possibilities. And we can talk to our bodies and we can change our frequency and we can change our cells and we can, it's a more empowering way of thinking that Archangel Michael showed me to be that it wasn't just about asthma and healing that, it's healing all aspects of maybe what we're experiencing.
That's very encouraging to hear. So thank you. Thank you for sharing this. Thank you for absolutely everything. I want to ask where people can find you if they want to connect, but first, is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience?
I think that the overall sentiment that I wanna share is one of empowerment. Um, I hope that no matter where you're at in your life right now, even if you feel like you're in a good place, I think that the biggest gift of my NDE was this feeling of empowerment that we are always able to change, to grow, to ascend, these are all words that describe the same thing. And so if you're struggling, you're not that struggle and you can heal. And there's many tools available for you to heal. The Akashic Records is just one of them. But even if you are, like I said, in a wonderful place, that the empowerment piece is to know that you are the co-creator of your life and your consciousness, how you are thinking, and the state of being that you are in, right, is going to be what leads you to your highest path. So your perspective is what co-creates your reality. Your perspective is how you are thinking. That's your state of consciousness, and that is free. That is unlimited. You can always access a higher truth. You can always access um, your highest desires, your highest path. And if you choose to explore that, well, what is my highest path? What do I really want? What is my soul's mission? Or what do I really deserve in my abundant light? Then allow that to be what leads you in your life.
I love that. Thank you so much. I love the phrase that we are co creators of our reality.
Yeah.
I've started thinking about that a lot.
Co-creation is co-creating with our higher power. When you manifest, you can manifest attached to your ego, you can manifest from any state of being, right? But when you co-create, you are plugged into your higher power.
That's beautiful. And for those who are wanting to hear more from you, connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
So I probably am mostly on Instagram at Malibu Medium, and my website is themalibumedium.com, and I have a podcast called The Malibu Medium. Although I have not recorded episodes in a long time, I'm trying to get back into all of that. And hopefully soon I will be getting that book out to everyone to share the amazing messages from my guides. And like I said, I teach people how to read the records, and I do give Akashic record readings. So the best way to find me would be through my website, the Malibu Medium, or my Instagram.
Okay. And when you release the book, make sure to send me the link. I'll also add it to all the other links in the description. But for those who are listening now and just want to know, will you update on your Instagram when the book is out?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes, of
Okay.
course. Yes.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you so much, Amber, for sharing your story, for your advice, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.